Hey, you're listening to Wrestling Roundup, FreeFM 89.0. This is Grady Hooker, and live on Skype today. Yeah, we got no one. Hopefully Josh is feeling better by the time this airs, but as of us recording, Josh had to skip out to an emergency dentist for a bit of a broken tooth. So I hope you're feeling better, buddy. And while I'll talk about Fastlane, I can talk to myself for half an hour. It's not that hard. So the pre-show was made up of entirely hype again. Now, I'm not very happy with that, and I never am. I think I've expressed my opinion on that before. If you're going to have a 1 hour pre-show, put matches on it. 1 match, 2 match, I don't mind. Put matches on it. The one segment that was worthwhile was the Miz TV segment, and it was still just talking. I don't get it. But also, they had what they normally do. I'm pretty sure. I've only watched a couple of pre-shows now. They had a question and answer session. There's a hashtag on Twitter. You tweet your questions. They asked the Usos, it was this week. That went for about a minute and a half. They asked the Usos, how's it like having Rikishi in the Hall of Fame? And they asked, are you ready for your tag title match? And then they left. It's not a question and answer. You asked 2 questions. At least lengthen that as well while you're at it. And then somebody got fired, I'm sure, backstage. Because if you were watching the pre-show and you didn't close it down, for 12 minutes into the Fastlane pay-per-view, the actual show, they were still streaming for free on YouTube, 1080p. Exactly like their pre-show. It had the entrances for the 6-man tag and the beginning of the match. About that point, they just cut the entire thing, and it just went to a still image. Go to the network to watch the pay-per-view. I thought it was quite funny that it seems that the backstage team were on such an edge that someone forgot to push that one button that would cancel YouTube streaming. So I'll talk about the actual show. As I just said, we opened up with the 6-man tag team match. That was the Authority, Seth Rollins, Big Show, and Kane versus Dolph Ziggler, Eric Rowan, and Ryback. So this was a good match. It was a short match for what it was worth, and it was all done just to set up the aftermath of the match. It was fairly obvious that the Authority were going to go over. They had 5 of them. They'd been beating those 3 for a while now. The numbers game took advantage. Those 3 lost. And Seth Rollins started curb stomping people. Curb stomps left, right. This is on to Ziggler, Rowan, everybody. And then we get the return of Randy Orton, which was meant to have been happened at the Rumble, but because of the bad reception, they delayed it. And he's back, and clearly gunning for Seth Rollins. So I'm going to talk a little about the Raw after Fastlane as well. Pre-warning for some spoilers. The Authority tried to convince Orton to come back, rejoin the family. He agreed, weirdly enough. There was a lot of tension in the main event, where Seth was forced to team up with Orton. So I don't think that's going to be lasting long. I'm pretty sure. I've written it down in my books in pencil. Could change, but in pencil. Randy Orton versus Seth Rollins for WrestleMania. I think that's where they're heading. In terms of the other people in that match, no idea what Big Show and Kane. Probably the Andre Memorial Battle Royal, which is where I think Ryback will be heading, and Eric Rowan. Looking at Raw, it looks like Dolph Ziggler versus R-Truth versus Bad News Barrett versus Dean Ambrose for the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania. Which, at least, is some booking for the Intercontinental title. We've got some storyline behind it, and we're not just rushing through. So, second match on the card, decent length match between Goldust and Stardust, but it did end in Goldust defeating Stardust in a cheap way. Which then led backstage, because Dusty Rhodes, their father, had asked Goldust not to hurt Stardust. But he's still trying to snap him out of it and bring him back to Cody Rhodes. And it didn't exactly work. Backstage, Stardust went off at Goldust, threw him into the barrier. That's not over. There'll be a rematch at WrestleMania. And this is one of the first where I had to tweet, that's the finish that sets up a rematch. So I think WrestleMania should really just be called the rematch of Fastlane, because there's a lot of rematches that'll be happening on it. Or could be happening, should I say. I don't know what matches are being booked, except for the main event so far. Tag titles, Tyson Kidd and Cesaro defeated the Usos for the titles. This went for about 10 minutes, a great match between the two. Kidd and Cesaro are really looking up to be one of my favourite teams at the moment. I think they could probably coordinate their gear a little more to look more like a tag team. But other than that, they're looking sweet as a team. They're now the champions. I imagine they'll hold it through till WrestleMania. Whether they do a rematch with the Usos, or whether they biff in some other teams for the titles. Or I've heard it suggested a 6-man intergender match. So Kidd, Cesaro, and Natalia versus the Usos and Naomi. I'm definitely seeing that one being hinted more at. Natalia and Naomi got physically involved in the men's matches, their rematch on Raw, with Naomi pushing Tyson Kidd's leg off the rope, and then Natalia pushing Jay off the top rope to cause a DQ finish. So if I had to pick right now, I'd definitely pick a 6-man tag from that, with the titles not on the line, so it's more of a personal feud than a title feud. So Tyson Kidd and Cesaro are two of the most athletic performers WWE has right now. So I think it was a very smart move, but I still can't stand the music of Cesaro's that they use for the tag team entrance. The sirens put me off. But, it's what they're going to go with. So now we're going to jump into the classic song of the week. It's wrestling related in that it's Elimination Chamber 2010's theme, which is the first Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, which is, of course, the pay-per-view that got replaced by Fastlane, and is the new February pay-per-view. I believe it is Rise Up, so enjoy that. And you're back with Wrestling Roundup, FreeFM 89.0, Grady Hooker. So we're talking about Fastlane and the Raw afterwards. This is a time, since we were just talking about Tyson Kidd's match, just to quickly talk about the interview I did 2 days ago, probably about 5 days ago by the time this show goes up. It was with Mike Hart. So he is the son of Smith Hart, who's the son of the Top Level Hart. So he's third generation wrestler. He's currently wrestling in Canada. It was a great interview. I think we went for about 45 minutes. We talked about Fastlane. We predicted that. We talked all about his career, the Hart family, everything like that. So that's all over our social medias, our Facebook, our Twitter. You can find it everywhere. It's on our YouTube. Search Wrestling Roundup interview Mike Hart. You'll find it. To get back onto the show, we had a pitiful length Divas Championship match, Nikki Bella versus Paige. That ended in the wrong way, but Nikki Bella had a handful of tights, so that's what's going to lead to the rematch in some form. Whether it's another invitational with all the Divas, whether it's a triple threat with Brie added, whether it's a fatal four-way with AJ added, I have no idea, but some form of Paige is not finished with the Divas title scene. And I skipped it on Raw on accident, but I think they had a rematch on Raw, and it was a very short match, or at least Nikki Bella and Paige were involved in a match, and it was very short. I heard a lot of people complaining, and I think the number 3 trend worldwide was like hashtag give the Divas a chance, or something like that. So I talked a little about it earlier, the Intercontinental Championship. This match was between Bad News Barrett and Dean Ambrose. Basically, Dean caused a disqualification finish there. which is the finish that sets up a rematch in some form or another, as I said earlier, after the events of Raw, where Dolph Ziggler beat Bad News, and R-Truth was bragging about beating Bad News earlier. It was on a SmackDown, I think, a Thursday Night SmackDown. Still aren't used to saying that. And Dean Ambrose ran off with the title. So he's the current title holder, per se. Air quotes around holder. So, yeah, Fatal 4-Way is my guess for that, but that is still technically a rematch. Those two are still in it for the title. Should be an alright match. I haven't watched SmackDown in a while, so R-Truth being in it is definitely a little surprising to me. But also on Raw, they did announce, officially, most people thought it was coming anyway, but officially they announced the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal is coming back. I think we got 3 entrants into it, I want to say. We got Ryback, Curtis Axel, and The Miz. Probably Mizdow as well, because their feud seems to be intensifying. Yeah, just those 3 announced so far, with Mizdow getting a place in a commercial, which The Miz wasn't too pleased with. Yeah, so Mizdow's breaking apart from The Miz, and I think that break will finally happen in the Battle Royal. Whether it's Mizdow throwing Miz over the top to win, or something along those lines. We got Axelmania. Yeah, he's trying to get that movement going. His old tag team buddy Ryback's going to be in the match, probably going to stop him. I would like to see Curtis Axel make it far, probably not win, but make it far. He is a great wrestling talent, and I think he deserves to at least have a spot to show himself. They at least seem to be doing a mini push of sorts with the whole Axelmania thing, even if it is just him saying, let's get Axelmania going and then getting squashed by someone. It's something. It's on TV. It's every week. And I guess you can't yell at being on TV every week. So we have a little bit of time. I'll just quickly run through the Rusev John Cena for the US title match. Quite surprising to no one. Rusev won by dirty means. Pretty much exactly the way people predicted it. It was a long match, 18 minutes, but a good match. It was great, in my opinion. I'd put it in the great category. Rusev's definitely showing that he can play with the big boys, even if John Cena is calling spots and Michael Cole acknowledges it. Just a hint if you're a commentator, shh, don't call him out on it. John Cena was not talking to himself. Hopefully Rusev gets a little more comfortable in the ring to the point where John Cena doesn't need to call him. But, it was a good 19-minute match, and John Cena passed out in the accolade. So even though people don't want to admit it, he did lose. Even if Rusev kicked him below the belt just before the accolade. But yeah, it obviously, again, this is the finish that's setting up a rematch at WrestleMania. I believe on Raw he asked Rusev for a rematch, and Rusev said no. He'll earn his way to a rematch somehow. Maybe a submission match, I heard Brandon, one of our other hosts, say. So now we'll go into a current entrance theme. This one's slightly important, and we'll talk about his segment after the song. So that segue. It Sting's Out from the Shadows. And you're back for Wrestling Roundup, FreeFM 89.0, Grady Hooker, 8 minutes out from the end of the show. We got one match left on Fastlane and a quick segment between Triple H and Sting. So Triple H tried to get the upper hand. He got old Sledgy out, but he was met by old Batty, I don't know. And Sting threatened him with the bat, intimidated him, and then pointed at the WrestleMania sign. They then made it official later that day, still on the pay-per-view, that Sting versus Triple H is going to happen. Oh my god, shocker! Nobody saw it coming. Oh. Also, in what was a surprise, I'm going to say to most people, I don't think I heard anyone say this exact thing happening, But the Undertaker entrance returned. We had the Druids come out, the fire, the weird thing, then the music, and then some Druids pushing a coffin, and Bray Wyatt sits up out of the coffin. I think as soon as the music hit, for some reason in the back of my head, it clicked that this was going to be Bray Wyatt impersonating him. We still have not seen the Undertaker as of the Raw after Fastlane. But Bray Wyatt is definitely sending a message. He specifically said the Undertaker for the first time if the entrance was not obvious enough. And now we're going to see those two face off if the Undertaker shows up. I don't know, but since we have not seen them, I'm going to presume that he's just going to show up at WrestleMania. We're not going to see him beforehand. Bray Wyatt's just going to come out, call him out, and he's going to show up. Hopefully we get a good match, and I, at the moment, can't predict what way that's going to go, that match. I've been back and forth on it a lot. So now we're going to talk about the main event, Daniel Bryan versus Roman Reigns. I'll just get up the running time for that match. It was a 20-minute match, and I don't know what the critics are saying, I haven't looked them up, but I thought it was a good match. I think Roman Reigns finally showed he can put on a good match. It was a little jiggity at times, but I think that when you're going up against Brock Lesnar, don't expect the same style match as when he's going up against Bryan. And I think that match with Lesnar is going to suit him more, where he can take those rest points between the matches, or between the spots, sorry. And you're going to have to deal with it anyway, because he won the match. It's what we're seeing. No triple threat. No fancy screw around. We're seeing exactly what the Royal Rumble promised us. We're going to see Brock Lesnar take on Roman Reigns. Nothing changed. Stop complaining. Of course, this does leave us the question of where does Daniel Bryan sit for the WrestleMania card. Whether he's, as we see, Dolph Ziggler's with the IC title, so the Bryan Ziggler thing ain't going to happen. Whether he's going to be taking on a Sheamus, maybe, a returning Sheamus, some of the Authority guys, Big Show Kane, or whether he'll just simply be inserted into the Battle Royal. I do think he deserves a higher spot on the card than being in the Battle Royal, so I don't know. I think they might make this the Bryan Sheamus redemption year to redeem the, 16-second loss. But it also seems weird to bring Sheamus back for a loss. So we'll have to see where that's going. Again, as of Raw, we have not seen Sheamus. He's just been floating around with his promos. So as of Raw, all we know for the WrestleMania is that we're going to see the big title, Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar. We're going to see Sting, Triple H, and we're going to see the Battle Royal with at least The Miz, Ryback, and Curtis Axel. I've also hinted at the Intercontinental Fatal 4-Way, a Goldust Stardust rematch, a Rusev John Cena rematch, some form of six-man intergender match with Kid Cesaro and Natalia versus the Usos and Naomi, Randy Orton versus Seth Rollins, Bray Wyatt versus Undertaker. What else have I got written down here? Some form of Divas match, whether that be Paige, Nikki, Brie, returning AJ, another Divas competitor, I don't know. And my long shot pick to win the Andre the Giant Battle Memorial is Sandow. I think that it's time to unleash him from The Miz and to push him there. So I'm just going to... I had the card up of what I thought the card was going to be. I'm just going to do long shot predictions now. What is it, 4 weeks away from the show, of how I expect everything to go. I'd say Roman Reigns wins the title. Sting defeats Triple H. The Undertaker goes over Bray Wyatt. John Cena defeats Rusev. Seth Rollins defeats Randy Orton. Daniel Bryan defeats Sheamus. Damian Mizdow wins the Battle Royal. Dean Ambrose wins the Intercontinental title. Paige, or AJ if she comes back, wins the Divas title. Kid and Cesaro and Natalia get the win. And Stardust gets the win at WrestleMania, but comes to his senses and turns back to Cody, hopefully. And those are my picks. That's the card, and that is what I think will happen. We'll see how right I was. I think most of WrestleMania is fairly set out from now. And there might be a couple of changes here and there, a couple of returns. But you can definitely see the groundwork has been laid. We're on the home stretch. What is it? Probably 4 more Raws, I'd say. I haven't done the counting before the big day. Yeah, hopefully we see some great matches. There's a lot of matches there that have the potential to be good matches, but there's always that potential out there. They've just got to deliver on the match, and hopefully this time the Undertaker doesn't get a concussion 5 minutes in. So that's all we have time for this week. From Wrestling Roundup, you've been listening to Grady Hooker talking to himself for half an hour. You can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com Wrestling Roundup Radio, or our Twitter page, twitter.com/WrestlingRadio, or our never really updated website, wrestlingroundup.host22.com, wrestlingroundup.host22.com. I hope you stood through listening to my voice for half an hour. Thank you very much for sticking with us. 101 shows. Here's to 101 more. I'll see you next week. Hold on. Cut the music. Just got a quick 10 seconds. Congratulations to the Bushwhackers, the next inductees into the WWE Hall of Fame. New Zealand news everywhere. See you next week.